Welcome to our deep dive today, all about the rock squirrel.
The rock squirrel.
Yeah, when someone says squirrel, I think most people picture like the little guys that are running around parks.
Right.
Those cute little things eating acorns.
Yeah, the eastern gray squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. But we're going way beyond that today.
Yeah.
We're talking about one of their larger and much more intriguing, I think, cousins.
Definitely, a lot of people may not be as familiar with rock squirrels,
Right?
but they have just as captivating a story as any other.
Yeah.
And they really carve out a niche for themselves in some very challenging environments.
It's such
scorching deserts to rocky canyons.
Yeah, and I think that's what is so interesting to me about them. They
Yeah.
thrive in places where other animals just wouldn't be able to.
Right.
So where do we even begin with this this deep dive?
We have an excerpt from a Wikipedia article
Okay.
and a short audio clip of a rock squirrel alarm call
Cool.
to kind of guide our deep dive.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, I guess.
Yeah, the first thing you'll notice about a rock squirrel is their size.
Okay.
They can grow up to 21 inches long,
Wow.
which is significantly bigger
That's huge.
than the squirrels you might see in your local park.
Yeah, that's like comparing like a minivan to a compact car.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
For sure.
And speaking of appearances, I mean, they have a very distinctive look, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Their speckled grayish-brown coat acts as excellent camouflage in their rocky habitat.
Okay.
Blends in seamlessly with the surroundings.
Yeah.
They also have these striking white rings around their eyes.
Yes.
Give them a rather alert and almost inquisitive expression.
Yeah.
And then don't forget those prominent ears.
Oh, yeah.
They really stick out.
They definitely stand out from their more familiar relatives.
Yeah.
Now, the sources mention that they are found in very specific parts of the U.S. and Mexico.
Right.
What's the deal with their habitat preference?
Well, as their name suggests, they're drawn to rocky terrain.
Makes sense.
Mountains, canyons, cliffs.
Okay.
Places that provide a lot of crevices for shelter and vantage points to spot predators.
Okay.
They're even found in some of the most arid parts of California,
Really?
which makes you wonder how they manage to survive in such harsh conditions.
Yeah, that's a good point because you think of squirrels,
Right.
living in forests with lots of trees,
Right.
not necessarily like, Death Valley.
Right.
So what kind of adaptations do they have that allow them to thrive in these more barren landscapes?
Well, one key adaptation is their ability to conserve water.
Okay.
They can go for extended periods without drinking,
Wow.
sometimes up to 100 days,
100 days.
by obtaining moisture from their food and having incredibly efficient kidneys.
100 days. That's amazing.
It is.
I think of, camels can go a long time without water.
Yeah,
I never thought about a squirrel
right.
being able to do that.
It's a testament to their resilience
Yeah,
and ability to adapt to challenging environments.
for sure.
But it's not just about water conservation.
Right.
Their diet plays a crucial role in their survival as well.
Okay, so that's interesting because I think when most people think of squirrels, they think of just eat nuts.
No.
But the sources that we have suggest that their diet's a lot more varied than that.
You're absolutely right. While they do enjoy acorns and pine nuts,
Mm-hmm.
especially during certain seasons, they're actually primarily herbivores.
Okay.
They consume a wide variety of plants, including leaves, stems, seeds, fruits, berries, agaves,
Wow.
and even cacti.
Cacti.
Yeah.
I would not have thought of that.
Yeah.
So it seems like they've learned to take advantage of whatever food source is available in their environment.
And it's not just plants.
Uh-huh.
They'll occasionally supplement their diet with insects like grasshoppers, beetles,
Oh.
even earthworms,
Interesting.
especially when they need that extra protein.
So they're pretty opportunistic when it comes to food.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do they manage to gather and store all this food?
Right?
Do they have those, adorable cheek pouches
They do.
like other squirrels?
Yes. And those cheek pouches are surprisingly spacious.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to think about them stuffing those pouches full of seeds, fruits, and nuts,
Yeah.
carrying it all back to their burrows and creating these little stockpiles for later.
So speaking of burrows,
Yeah.
the source material mentioned that they have really quite elaborate burrow systems.
Yes.
It's more than just digging a simple hole in the ground, right?
Their burrows are truly remarkable.
Yeah.
There are complex networks of tunnels and chambers, often extending several feet underground.
Wow.
They're designed to provide shelter from the elements, safety from predators, and even space for raising their young.
So it's like their own little underground city.
Yeah.
Now, We talked about their size, those striking eye rings, but I'm curious to learn a little bit more about how they interact with each other.
Right.
Do they live solitary lives? Are they more social creatures?
Rock squirrels are actually quite social, living in organized colonies that can sometimes number in the dozens.
Oh, wow. So they have a whole social structure.
They do.
Tell me about that.
Well, within these colonies, there's usually a dominant male
Okay.
who plays a key role in protecting the group from intruders and predators.
So he's like the king of the castle.
Yeah, you could say that.
Sounds like there could be some drama within these colonies.
Yeah, there's definitely a hierarchy within the group, with subordinate males often hanging around the edges, maybe hoping for their chance to rise in the ranks.
Right.
And then there are the females who play a crucial role in raising the young.
So it's a lot going on beneath the surface, literally and figuratively,
Yeah,
within these rock squirrel colonies.
for sure.
And speaking of communication, we can't forget about that alarm call that we mentioned earlier.
Right.
I'm really curious to hear what it sounds like.
Me too. It's supposed to be quite distinct.
Okay.
Let's give it a listen.
Okay.
All right, so that was the rock squirrel alarm call.
Wow. That's a pretty intense warning signal.
Yeah.
I can imagine that sending shivers down the spine of any predator.
Yeah, it's a very powerful way for them to communicate danger
Right.
to the entire colony.
So that brings us to another fascinating aspect of their behavior, their
Yes.
anti-predator tactics.
Right.
What kind of strategies do they use to stay safe in such a, predator-filled environment?
Well, they have a whole arsenal of defenses.
Okay.
Remember those high vantage points they love?
Yeah.
Those aren't just for admiring the view.
Okay.
Being up high allows them to spot predators early on,
Right.
giving them a head start in evading danger.
Early warning is crucial
It is.
for survival. What else do they do?
They're not afraid to stand their ground either.
Really?
Researchers have observed them making aggressive displays towards snakes, even throwing debris at them to try to deter them.
Oh, wow. They're feisty.
They are.
So they're not just passive victims.
No, they're willing to fight back.
And of course, we can't forget those powerful alarm calls that we just heard.
Right, those are crucial
I mean, that's a serious...
for alerting the entire colony.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we humans can also be perceived as threats
Yes, it is
to these animals.
very important to remember that we share these spaces with wildlife, and we need to be mindful of our impact
Right.
on their lives.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Appearance, habitat, diet, social dynamics.
What?
What stands out to you so far?
It's really their adaptability.
Yeah.
You know, they've managed to thrive in these very harsh, rocky environments by developing incredible survival strategies.
Yeah.
From water conservation skills to their diverse diet
Yeah.
to their intricate burrow systems.
And their social structure, too, with the dominant male and the alarm calls. It's like they have their own little society
Yeah, it really is.
going on there.
It's amazing.
Well, I'm definitely ready to delve deeper into these aspects.
Yeah, me too.
But we'll have to save that for part 2.
Yes, we will.
Welcome back to our deep dive all about rock squirrels.
Ah.
We've already uncovered some pretty fascinating facts about their appearance, habitat, diet, and even social structure, but there's still so much more to explore. Before we went to the break, we were talking about their resilience and resourcefulness, especially in harsh environments.
Right.
And I'm curious to learn more about their hibernation patterns. Do all rock squirrels hibernate?
Well, that's a great question, and it actually highlights how adaptable they are. It really depends on where they live.
Okay.
Rock squirrels in the northern parts of their range where winters are much colder and food is scarce. They definitely hibernate to conserve energy.
That makes sense. It's like hitting the snooze button on life for a few months
Exactly.
to ride out those, tough times.
Yeah.
But what about the squirrels living in warmer areas like, southern Arizona or Mexico?
Yeah, it's fascinating because the sources mentioned that rock squirrels in those southern regions, they might not hibernate at all.
Oh, wow.
Or if they do, it's for much shorter periods and not as consistently as their northern counterparts.
So their hibernation patterns are flexible, kind of like their diet.
Right.
They adapt to what works best for them.
Exactly. It shows just how attuned they are to their surroundings.
Yeah.
And speaking of adaptation, we can't forget about their incredible ability to survive without water for those extended periods.
Right.
You mentioned earlier how impressive it was that they could go up to 100 days without drinking.
Yeah, that really blew my mind.
It did.
How do they do that?
It's a combination of factors. Actually, remember all those juicy fruits and cacti they consume?
Yeah.
Well, their diet provides them with some of the moisture they need.
Okay, so they're getting some hydration from their food.
Yeah, but there's more to it than that.
Okay.
They also have remarkable physiological adaptations that help them conserve water.
Okay.
Their kidneys, for instance, are incredibly efficient at concentrating urine, which
Oh,
minimizes water loss. They can
wow.
even reduce water loss through respiration.
So they have all these really specialized mechanisms to basically squeeze every drop of moisture out of their environment.
Yeah.
That's amazing,
It really highlights how much we can learn from nature's ingenuity.
for sure.
But let's shift gears for a moment and go back to their social structure.
Okay.
We talked about the dominant male and the subordinate males,
Right.
but the sources didn't go into a lot of detail about how all of that works,
Yeah.
you know?
Right, and I'm curious to know more about how these colonies function.
Yeah.
What's the dynamic like
Mhm.
between the dominant male and the other squirrels?
Well, while we don't have all the specifics, it's
Mhm.
safe to say that the dominant male plays a very vital role in maintaining order
Okay.
and protecting the colony.
So he's responsible for defending the colony from intruders, whether it's another male trying to take over
Right.
or a predator.
Exactly. And remember those alarm calls we heard earlier?
Yeah.
Those are really crucial for maintaining the safety of the entire colony.
Okay.
It's a collective effort with everyone playing their part and looking out for each other.
So they're working together, communicating, relying on each other for survival.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
They're not just individuals, they're part of a complex social unit.
Yeah, exactly. And that raises an interesting question considering this complex social structure.
Yeah.
Do you think that rock squirrels exhibit any form of learned behavior or cultural transmission within their colonies?
That is a great question. It makes you wonder if those alarm calls, for instance,
Yeah.
are purely instinctive or if younger squirrels learn them
Right.
from the older, more experienced members.
It's certainly a possibility. There's so much that we still don't know about animal cognition and social learning.
Right.
It's a field that's really ripe for further exploration.
It really makes you appreciate the complexity of the natural world, even in creatures that, might seem pretty ordinary
I agree.
at first glance.
Absolutely.
Who would thought that these little rock squirrels have such intricate social lives
Right.
and these just incredible adaptations that
Yeah.
allow them to thrive in challenging environments?
It's a reminder that there's always more to discover,
Yeah.
always more to learn,
Yeah.
and we often underestimate the intelligence and resourcefulness of animals,
Hmm.
especially those that aren't as charismatic as like a lion or an
Right.
elephant.
But even with, the limited information that we have, it's clear that the rock squirrel is a pretty remarkable species.
Yeah.
And their story really highlights the power of evolution and the incredible resilience of nature.
Absolutely. And the story is far from over. Who knows what other secrets they hold, waiting to be uncovered by curious minds like ours.
Well, I'm ready to dive into those secrets,
Too.
but we'll have to save that for the final part of our rock squirrel deep dive.
Stay with us.
We'll be right back to wrap up our exploration of these fascinating creatures. Welcome back to the final part of our rock squirrel deep dive.
Yeah?
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little bit humbled
You too.
after learning all about their adaptations and their social lives.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how much we can learn from these seemingly ordinary creatures.
Right, and we've explored, their physical features,
Mhm.
their ability to survive in these really harsh environments. Right.
They're fascinating social dynamics. But, I think it's important to also acknowledge that our relationship with rock squirrels isn't always harmonious.
That's true. Rock squirrels have adapted to live near humans in some areas,
Right.
and this can sometimes lead to conflict. They might raid gardens, get into attics, or even chew on electrical wiring.
So it's understandable why some people see them as a nuisance,
Right.
especially if they're, causing damage to property.
Exactly. But I think it's important to approach the situation with a balanced perspective. While it can be frustrating to deal with those kinds of issues, we need to remember that rock squirrels are just trying to survive.
Right. They're just trying to make it like everyone else.
Exactly.
We often forget that we're sharing these spaces with wildlife.
Yes, and it's not just about avoiding direct conflict.
Okay.
Rock squirrels play a really vital role in their ecosystems.
Right.
They're important seed dispersers,
Okay.
helping plants spread and regenerate.
Right.
And as we've discussed, they're a food source. Right.
Or a variety of predators.
So taking them out of the equation could have some ripple effects.
Yeah, it could have ripple effects throughout the entire food web.
It's all connected.
It is.
And, kind of circles back to that question we had earlier about their potential for learned behavior and cultural transmission.